Now, as you listened to that last episode, you may have felt that it was a bit extreme for me to throw away all of my music. After all, not every secular musician is singing blasphemous lyrics or singing about having the devil inside them. There are bands and artists out there who, while perhaps not Christian, are just singing about normal, everyday, relatable things, or at least things that are not necessarily antithetical to the Christian worldview. So wasn't it overkill to get rid of absolutely everything? Wasn't that kind of throwing the baby out with the bathwater, so to speak? Well, there are two reasons why I felt it was important to get rid of all my secular music at that particular time, and I want to cover those reasons over the next 2 episodes. The first reason that I felt that I should get rid of all of the music is that at that time it had become an idol to me. As I explained in the last video, and as silly as it now seems, and I'm embarrassed to say it, but I didn't think I could survive without this music. I just thought life would become so unbearably diminished, that life would become so boring and drab without it. I thought I needed this music in my life to function. It was one of the places from which I derived meaning, even. And that's a pretty good definition of what an idol is. An idol is anything that has control or mastery over you, that you are enslaved to, that you feel powerless to resist, that has taken the place of God or is even challenging the place of God, and you feel like you couldn't survive without it. Well, that's what music had become to me at that time. And of course, under that definition, it then becomes plain that actually anything can become an idol in our lives. So an example, and I don't mean to pick on anyone here, but it's just the first one that comes to mind, is that a lot of coffee drinkers will tend to boast about how they're not able to function without coffee in their life and how they need it to exist. They say, I can't survive without my coffee. I need my morning coffee. I'm not human until I've had my morning coffee, my first coffee of the day. Don't even talk to me until I've had my first coffee of the day. If someone can't function without coffee, if it's exerting control and mastery over your behavior, if it has enslaved you in this way, it has become an idol. If you don't feel like you could give up coffee for even a single day or 2 days or even half a day, it's an idol. And idols always, quite simply, need to be smashed. Now you could say, well, what about food? Because we need food to function and it therefore exerts control over us. We even order our days around meal times. You can't get rid of all food from your life or you die. So are you saying that food is an idol under this definition because it controls our behavior and because we can't do without it? Well, it can become an idol. This is one of the reasons why we practice the discipline of fasting, of course, as Christians. In 1 Corinthians it says, you say I'm allowed to do anything, but not everything is good for you. And even though I'm allowed to do anything, I must not become a slave to anything. You say food was made for the stomach and the stomach for food, and that is true. But again, we must not become a slave to that food. We must not become a slave to our stomachs. In Philippians 3, Paul writes, they're headed for destruction. Their God is their appetite. Your appetite can become a god to you. It can become an idol. Some translations say their God is their stomach. So yeah, we can make an idol of food. We can make an idol of our stomachs. And we must make sure that that doesn't happen either. You see, either we control our appetites or our appetites are going to control us. And when our appetites control us and when we feel powerless to resist them, they have enslaved us. They have then become an idol to us. See what I mean here? So in order to smash that food idol, we should fast occasionally, exert mastery and control over our stomachs rather than the other way around. We can do without a meal sometimes. We can even go a day without food or 2 days without food. It isn't going to do us any harm. In fact, it's going to do us a lot of good in reality. And see this series for more information because I talked about it in this series. Fasting helps us to smash the idolatry of the stomach, which is important because nothing must exert mastery over us as Christians except for God Himself, our true Savior and our true Lord. And so to bring it back to music, this music had that kind of hold over me. It exerted control over my life. I felt powerless to resist it or to go without it, even for a day or two. I felt like I needed this music in my life, or life would simply become unbearable. And thus, because it had become this idol to me, I felt that it needed to be smashed and smashed completely. And that's the first reason why I decided to get rid of all of it in one go, to prove to myself that I didn't need it in my life to function or to survive, to exert mastery and control over it so that it no longer had mastery or control over me. And so I guess the challenge at the end of this episode is, what is there in our lives that we are currently enslaved to in this manner? Is it food? Is it coffee? Is it music? What idols do we have as Christians that need to be smashed in this way?